You.
Okay. Let me show it for you.
Hi, good morning. Okay, good morning. I'm Joe Rodriguez, Southern Irish Counselor. I'm facilitator Southern Irish Services, Board of Clinic, Community Free Transitional Housing, Coordination Program, Wellness Centers.
Hi, my name is Madam Claudia. I'm an early intervention specialist and also community health worker.
Oh, good. Jacqueline Ortiz Miller, community health worker.
Teresa Frank Hauser, supervisor of health careers and education initiatives. And I'm the interim executive director and ICC.
Just Angel Payne, I'm the IT coordinator.
Tawana, MAI, Minority AIDS Initiative, engagement specialist.
I'm Isha Bartlett, medical case manager.
Delita Rose Daniels, Minority Initiative Program. Giselle Loriano, office manager.
Okay. So one thing, Maurice, when these guys are talking about like outreach and engagement, they're talking about people living with HIV/AIDS, and Angel is actually in the community providing substance abuse services to people with HIV/AIDS. Also, for other people with addiction, we don't know their status and are not asked.
So you guys believe in, you don't have to fully disclose, but just let us know how we can help.
Yes, except when it comes to our numbers, we need proof of HIV, but generally we don't, tell me if I'm wrong, but generally we'll provide services to anybody that really needs them.
Okay.
But then we go to report, we're only reporting people with HIV.
Gotcha. That's very good to know.
Do you guys agree? That's basically what we're doing, right? More or less. But we'll not.
If somebody came up to me and asked me, where's the food pantry, I'll tell them, yeah, it's down there,
But she can't give them funds.
Gotcha. Okay. So, welcome. My name is Larice Harvey. I am the Director of Strategic Relations for A Better Way Foundation, and we want to welcome you as potential partners. Central AHEC, and that is Central Connecticut Area Health Education Center. You guys have a large title. I like AHEC, okay? Yeah. So I just want to thank you. This is our office number and my email. And A Better Way is a nonprofit in Connecticut that is dedicated to sensible shift in drug policy from one of incarceration to substance abuse treatment and public health. Now, here's the big picture, right? With Affordable Care, the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, ACA, Obamacare coming into play, we now have a public health system. And so A Better Way Foundation has several principles. We engage in research, education, advocacy, and organizing. Pretty much we work with everybody and anybody to educate the community around drug policy, criminal justice, prison pardon, and parole reform. And it's always to deter people from incarceration, to help people with reintegration, and work with the Department of Correction inside of prisons. Sometimes I go in and talk to people who are incarcerated. We work with their families and their children. So one of our first principles is we do not do for others what they can do for themselves. This is our number one mantra, right? So a little background. When I first started out, I started out as a create change leader at A Better Way Foundation. And so at that time, we're working on drug-free school zones and pardons and parole reform. And so we really do believe that people are capable of doing for themselves if you give them the tools. We believe that people directly affected by the issue are best representatives. I myself have a felony conviction. I also have provisional pardon. And but my past, my crime was 20 years ago. My past has nothing to do with my present, and so we're really working hard with people. Everybody deserves a second chance. Most people who get second chances don't have criminal records, and yet they stand in judgment, and we're saying you shouldn't stand in judgment because therefore by the grace of God. Exactly. Organizing thrives when new knowledge is built and existing knowledge is analyzed and criticized, and which is why we're here to share our knowledge with you and have you share your knowledge with us and see how we can partner in making sure that we revitalize communities. Target, direct action, and occupying political space are forms of communication. So we do sometimes when necessary rallies. We do go do what they call hits, where we have your little picket signs and your chants and demand some respect, demand some policy change. We do that. We haven't had to do that in a long time, and I'm hoping that that continues. But if we need to, we can pull together about 2,000 people and do it.
I have my yellow shirt.
Oh, you was there after Restorative Justice.
Yes, of course.
Exploring existing networks are just as valuable as establishing new ones. So we try to maintain old relationships, and while we develop new ones, it's really about partnerships, and we're really good at doing that. And we have a AAA strategy, and that AAA strategy is a Better Ways Areas of Advocacy, where we have about 250 leaders who are in all 8 counties. Measuring success through leadership development and victories around an issue. So how we measure success is based on if we win an issue or not. Not if we got the legislation or if we got the policy change or we got the demand. How we measure is how people develop in that process. And we do have a lot of victories. So right now we have 4 pillars to community revitalization. Our first pillar is health equity, which is what I'm here to talk to you about. Under that, we have 2 campaigns. One is the public wellness campaign, which is where I talk to you about today. And the other one underneath the public wellness campaign is the one that I'm going to talk to you about is changing DOC's Directive 8.1, Section E, which has to do with the discharging plan for people who are leaving prisons. We have justice equity. We have indigent defense under justice equity. We have economic security. And under that, we have living wage jobs, and that's for people with and without criminal backgrounds. Felony disenfranchisement. Right now in Britain, we're doing Be in the Box, is long overdue, but we also passed it as a statewide initiative. And because of the national efforts to not have people with criminal records to be discriminated, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has new regulations that protect people with felony convictions. So they have a whole guideline where you cannot use someone's felony conviction against them, just like that's. Go ahead, you have a question?
I'm sorry, you could finish your
No, go
statement.
ahead.
I was gonna say, can you forward us that
I'll just send you the
legislation or
link.
information so we can pass that on?
Sure can. And the last one is public safety. And we're working with police departments to talk about prevention and deterrent from on the onset, instead of arresting someone because they have drug possession, to deter them and calling like crisis community center or you guys to give them support and help, as opposed to arresting them and sending them to prison, because all the services in the next year is going to be in the community, because prisons cannot get paid anymore to service people. Public safety also includes victim rights. That includes perpetrators as victims and their families. So everybody sees not necessarily the perpetrator or the person who was incarcerated or who got convicted of the crime as a victim. They only see the person they harmed as a victim. But guess what? 9 out of 10, that person who's the perpetrator has been victimized the majority of their lives.
Right.
And so their family has been impacted by trauma. So we're dealing with a lot of communities that have high trauma impact that have never been dealt with, ever. Okay, what's that? Health equity. What is public wellness? I just saw a light flash on. Go ahead and click. You click the, okay. Public wellness is designed to bring equity and healthcare to incarcerated communities by replacing mass incarceration and collateral damages from the war on drugs. So, we know that the ACA is not going to be implemented perfectly, but this is an opportunity for all of us who are in the public health field, who deal with substance use disorder as it's defined now, and mental health issues, as well as HIV and AIDS, is now it's our opportunity to show people why we say treatment is better than incarceration. Why treatment, and not everybody can live with the 12 steps, right? Everybody has something different. Some people survive just based on their religion. Other people do it based on, having positive reinforcement around them, new friends, new family, their job, right, will keep them. Not everybody does the 12-step very well. And so for those people, we're saying, everybody needs their own little system. Why not work with that person's strengths and stop trying to put them in a box, right? Incarcerated communities, people always ask us, what is an incarcerated community? So an incarcerated community is an area that has complex trauma and functions in the following manner. Movement is limited and controlled by others and power over you in a condensed and confined environment. Think about the North End.
Yes.
Dependence on others for food, clothing, and shelter by breaking down independence, discourage independent thinking, encourage group thinking, and communalization of punishment. Again, think about the North End. Think about low-income areas like Willimantic. There are people who live on Martin Street that have not gone beyond Main Street in Hartford. They won't go to the South End. They don't go to Trinity College. They won't even go down to the University of Hartford, right? And so they feel confined because they don't feel like they belong anywhere else, right? And then if the state issues, the North End is a hot spot, right? So they have state troopers. There are people who are homeowners who are getting stopped and searched for no reason but for standing in front of their homes, or their grandkids that stand in front of their homes because they're all Black and Latino males. The police say that they're loitering, but the cats live there, right? And so it's like, what are you talking about? I have a right here, but they're not treated the same way as someone in Avon who has a bunch of kids standing in front of their homes. But they have their own issues. Providing a false sense of security because of increased police security guard presence. So you think of school system now, right? After Newtown, I went to an elementary school just yesterday, and there was a cop car outside and a police officer in the back office with a gun, right, in case something happens. Yes, we want security, but that's a false sense of security, especially to a kid who might be getting bullied, right, by someone else in school. And so that kid doesn't feel safer because there's more police there. That kid doesn't feel safer because there might be another security guard in the hallways. So it's the same thing that happens in the community. Just because you have more police doesn't mean you're more safer. It actually heightens the anxiety of people, and if people don't know people do not know how to deal with that anxiety, so they act out. And who do they act out against? Each other. Suffering from apathy due to limited financial, emotional, and mental support from society. Again, we're looking at, think about the North End of Hartford or a town like New Britain. There's a lot of apathy in the low-income Black and Latino communities because they feel like people really don't care about them. And the people that do come and care, they can't stay long because they're not being adequately funded, right? And so, I don't want to vote. What's that going to do? Why should I do anything? Because if I get a job, think about the single mom, right? She's getting a little assistance now. If I get a part-time job, they're going to cut my food stamps, or they're going to cut me off completely, right? But the little part-time job is not enough money to sustain my household. If I do get a part-time job, they're going to make, right, the Section 8 is going to make me pay more rent. I still can't afford. I'm trying to get this part-time job just so we can have a little something so I can buy new sneakers for my kids, right? And so there's this apathetic feeling, but the system itself is making people rely on the system, right? Not that people don't want to do something, is that they get punished if they try to move forward, right? There was a
picket right now.
There's the absence of equality. There's the absence of equality, criminal justice, health, education, and political system. So we're one of the things we're working on. Well, there's two things we're working on. One of them is the 13th Amendment. So in the 13th Amendment, it says slavery is abolished in America, except where you've been convicted and incarcerated, right? And so we're trying to close that gap. The other thing is indigent defense. So we have never, so the Constitution says adequate defense. We don't even have adequate defense because public defenders don't get the money that prosecuting attorney's office does, right? And so therefore, people are not being defended. They are being what? Forced to plea bargain. So you can't even prove if the state has the money to prosecute you, but the public defender's office don't have enough money or people to defend you. And sometimes people are not guilty, but because they have a rap sheet from being drug users or dealers, because most of our dealers these days use products, so they deal a different product so they can buy the product they need, right? And then we have cats who sell marijuana, not because they want to sell marijuana, but when marijuana is the less, to get, convicted of.
There's actually been two more things. First of all, the prosecutors get points for convictions. So what they do is,
Yes, they do.
oh, absolutely. How many convictions do they have? Because a lot of them are running for office later. So then the other problem is, so what they do is they will load somebody's charges. So say you get busted for weed. Okay, no, you didn't just get busted for weed. You were resisting arrest. You were trying to sell it. You were sitting near a school. You were this or that. So what they'll do is they'll say, listen, if you go to trial, you have 50 million charges against you. Just take the plea. Boom. So they got another they get another little
check.
Right, check for another
and they get bonuses.
And bonuses for that.
Yes.
Here.
So no, go ahead. Click one more time. So this new norm for accessing public health services forces poor people to be incarcerated for those services. The people incarcerated for those services come from poor urban and rural communities, so much so the cultural similarities between being incarcerated and being home are blurred. So we have captured this phrase called incarcerated communities because it just doesn't mean prison. In Plymouth, a rural white community, whereas poor people, they have the same issues and concerns and they don't even have any support, right? And so that's someone who was in prison drew this, and I just got it off a line from Incarceration and Community Health, bostonfed.org. And so the picture is bigger than this, but this is what it is. This is what we're saying. You're incarcerated in your mind. You're not. It doesn't have to be behind bars physically. We have a lot of people in this state who are mentally incarcerated because they suffer from trauma, from this description of yes, and some people have never even saw a prison. So in Plymouth, if you needed services, their public wellness center is 2 minutes away from their Department of Health, right? People won't drive that 2 minutes because it looks like it's in another town. So they won't leave their town. So they are mentally incarcerated in that community. So here's some history about DOC and healthcare services. So in 1997, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services provided Department of Corrections Medicaid coverage for incarcerated people. This covers us when you're going out for 24 hours. So the state of Connecticut also has a memorandum of understanding between John Dempsey Hospital and DOC. So that's why if anybody has a condition, they go to Dempsey, right? And if you're on parole, not probation, but if you're on parole, you are still a ward of the state. So if you get sick, you got to go back to jail and you go to John Dempsey. So resources that should have been available and uninterrupted to people in neighborhoods and towns were taken away and primarily provided without interruption inside of correctional facilities. So you think about people who are homeless, or you know somebody who says, I got a bad toothache, I'm just going to steal this candy bar and get arrested and go to jail and get my tooth fixed. You know people like that? I know people like that. And so I'm glad I'm not the only one because sometimes people make you feel like you're lying, but people know who do that.
Clarice, the biggest provider of mental health services in the state is the Department of Corrections.
Yes.
So the only place that you're actually guaranteed health care in the state is inside.
So after January 1st, not so.
No.
ACA, and we're saying that's a positive thing for all of us, right? And so now those resources are gonna go back into communities where you got